Hello and welcome to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. I'm Mike Montague and I'm here with Arif Khan, and we've got a half an hour to fill talking about real estate related matters. What do you want to talk about today,
Well,
Arif?
Mike, it's good to be back. And I think we had a great show last week. We covered a lot of ground.
Didn't go into too much depth, but we
That's the
kind of
point.
set the basis for some future discussions and possibly today's discussion as well.
Well, I think at the end of the day, if we're going to deliver some content, we want to deliver something to our audience where people are saying, hey, don't just tell me what I already know. Let's get into some of the meat. So, we've been talking about a lot, and a lot of what's on people's mind is really the fact that, it seems to be getting a little bit tougher to get in the marketplace.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, oh boy, it's tougher. The rules have changed, the regulations have changed, qualifications have changed, prices are
The
up.
determination is still
Why am I
there.
getting in? How am I going to get in? Am I ever going to own a home? That was one of the things that we talked about last week. So let's actually get into some of that today.
And as I say, the determination is still there, but people are seeing more obstacles and bigger obstacles. And with that becomes a need for more guidance and assistance from the professionals who can walk you through that.
Do you know what though, Mike? One of the things that always comes to mind is, oh shoot, I missed that opportunity. Am I ever going to get another opportunity again? And the answer always is yes. You always are, and now's a perfect time.
Since the dawn of time, people have been saying that about real estate was, I missed the boat on that. I should have bought when they were this price or this price. And 5-10 years later, they're saying it again.
Or you can talk about it at the .com era, you can talk about it in cryptocurrency, you can talk about it in the medical marijuana or the actual legalization of marijuana. You can talk about it in any possible opportunity is where were you when this hit and did you have the inside scoop? But the fact of the matter is there's always a new opportunity, and certainly in real estate.
And it's planning your time to get on board.
Yeah, so I really want to talk about, let's take this first a little bit to talk just simply about what the qualifications mean, and does that preclude me, a first-time home buyer, does that preclude me new into the marketplace from getting in, and why not? Yeah. And then I really believe the answer is
Preclude is a term I wouldn't want to use. It's just, I would rather replace that with, is it my time now? And if not, what amount of time do I need and what planning do I need to get to that point?
Yeah. So
never say never. There's always...
the fact of the matter is, Mike, the opportunity is now. The question is, the real question is, what mindset am I going in with? So there are a lot of people who might have a game plan or a strategy that they've been working towards or saving towards, putting their money aside for a down payment, or waiting to graduate from college or university, or waiting to finish their probation in a new career or new job. Maybe there's a marital separation, or maybe they're newly married. Different stages that people are planning
and then
towards.
there's also those who've done it and are repeating it.
But there's also the fact that sometimes the field shifts on you or me. Even though I've been planning one direction, suddenly the market shifts and that direction may not work anymore.
Government shift, new policy comes on board, takes us in a different direction, and the dynamics have changed.
Absolutely.
And you've got to adapt.
So you've heard me say this before, and listen, I empathize. Certainly if it's for my own personal use, let's say I'm newly married or whatever it may be, I might have an emotional connection to the idea of home ownership.
Yeah.
That's totally fair. That's realistic.
Yeah.
I want to talk to today, though, and if you might, and listen, I'm gonna take this out to you. Today's episode or today's session, our talk, it's really geared towards, from my perspective, for the person who wants to hear the truth. If you're prepared to hear the truth and you truly want to get into the idea of home ownership as an investment,
It's not that we haven't told the truth in the past, but we're just talking about stuff that's sometimes hard to hear.
Are you prepared to hear the hard facts? Are you prepared to hear the reality? I don't want to sugarcoat anything.
No.
Yeah, maybe it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Maybe it's going to take a little bit more prepreparation.
Yes.
Maybe it's going to talk about some habits. So bottom line is saying nicely, if you're not interested in hearing the actual cold hard facts, maybe change the channel today.
But within there, when times are tough, that does create opportunity for those who are willing to face those.
That's what we're talking about. The opportunity is now. So if you're willing to slightly put that emotional side to the side, or the emotional connection to the side, and looking...
Which you need to do when you're talking about real estate from an investment perspective.
Yes, that's the key.
Yeah.
All right, so if you're willing to put that aside and you're willing to look at this and say, my goal, my objective is my retirement looks like this, or my investment portfolio looks like that. If that's your objective, we have something to talk about.
Yes.
If it's, I'm more interested in the paint color, or I'm more interested in what the garden's going to look like, or whatever, and it's not so much about the investment, maybe we're not having this right conversation.
Yeah.
So really,
there could be a blend of the two.
There is an opportunity today, even with the fact that right now, with the qualification, with the income qualifications being tougher, or simply the qualifications being tougher for home ownership, where at least 40% of people who would have qualified on December 31st under a very relatively straightforward mortgage application are no longer qualifying at those same institutions under those same rates and same terms.
Circumstances, yes.
They're now having to look at alternative lenders. They're now having to look at
topping up their down payments.
Stricter guidelines for qualification, absolutely. So what this ends up doing though, Mike, is it ends up putting a little bit of pressure on the marketplace where maybe, and you'll know better than I will, but probably we're stretching out the days on market a little bit. And really, I would imagine what it creates is more of a buyer's marketplace. And when it creates a buyer's marketplace, that's an opportunity. But it may, from the buyer's perspective, I'm guessing, may not be necessarily for owner-occupied, but it may be an opportunity for investment properties.
That's happening. Now the amount of inventory over the course of this year was up from this time last year. But if you look at the numbers,
let's actually go there, Mike.
Sales prices.
Just about fell off my seat there.
Average sale price of homes this year. Technology is dangerous sometimes.
There we go.
We're up just over 20% over September of last year to September this year in property value. Now, what had happened in the spring, we'd hit that incredible peak, spring of 2017. Prices started to correct, and they came down a bit. And it was around August, September where they leveled off. And now they've started to come back up. And I think
well, if I might say, Mike, we can chalk that one up in our history because we were calling that. I mean, we were calling that was just an artificial
Some said that correction was going to be a lot bigger than it was. But it has leveled off. Buyer activity went quiet for a bit, or quieter, but it's returned. We're not seeing the same frenzy as we once had, but it's a healthier market now. And all indications are from CREA and CMHC. They're saying we can probably see price increases in line with cost of living increases
inflation
for the next few years.
So you're saying, though, bottom line is you're saying that the house prices have still appreciated and the number of units sold actually continues to trend upwards.
Which shows buyer confidence and shows demand.
Okay, but at the same time, why is it still a buyer's market?
It's still a buyer's market because it's a buyer's market, I think, for investors because with the price increases we've seen over the last number of years, with the doubling of average house prices in the last 5 years, we didn't see a doubling of rental rates in the last 5 years. They fell behind. Now we've hit a point where those rents are starting to adjust upwards. And as rental revenues increase, that creates opportunities for investors.
Okay, so we've set the tone right now. We're going to go to a break in just a second, but we've set the tone. We know that the prices are still trending upwards, just not as dramatically as before. We know that it's tougher to qualify. Therefore, there is still a bit of a glut in the rental marketplace then, all right? So those transitioning out of the rental marketplace into home ownership is stagnating. So therefore, it's the buyer with cash in hand or with the qualification that's going to be setting the terms or really has the upper hand in the negotiation right now.
And as I indicated in previous shows, like with that increased, like there is an increased demand for rental because prices are so high. And as you indicated, 40% of the people who no longer qualify, who may have qualified in a previous terms, they're staying in the rental market.
Good. So when we come back from the break, let's pick that up because I think there's an opportunity there that we can pick up on. So we'll be right back after the break. And welcome back to Hitting Home with Mike and Arif. I'm the Arif part. And before we went to break, we were talking about really just getting into some more of the meat and potatoes on what does it mean now that the market has shifted and regulations have kicked in, making it tougher, and it's messed with my plan that I had for world domination or a really strong retirement portfolio. I had a plan in mind, and now the game's changed. Okay. What does it mean? So we've talked about that.
It means different thing to different people. Are you looking to enter into this realm for the first time as an investor? Or are you an ongoing investor, wondering how this changes the way you play your game in the next little while? So.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, honestly, some people might not like the attitude, but the attitude is, don't make it personal. Yes. The fact is you cannot change what has happened. It's an age-old saying, right? It's how you deal with it. So how we're going to deal with it are in a couple of ways. For starters, if you're willing to adjust your habits. For example, this is not the first time that we've seen...
As an investor or just as, say, a first-time buyer here?
I think it really depends on your own personal circumstance. But let's just go back, actually. We were looking at some graphics, and we were looking at the trends and the changes. So as much as the regulations have changed and as much as it puts some pressure on the ability to qualify for a large portion of our population, the data is also suggesting that home sales are actually continuing to trend upwards, and so are prices.
Yes.
Okay, so that's obviously telling data all on its own. But let's actually go back and look at the last time that really we saw a steady increase in a trend towards higher interest rates.
And go back to the 80s too.
Yeah, and the number one thing that people are talking about was, do you remember when? In the 1980s. So Joe, we've got a graphic here we'd love to go to. And when we look here, Mike, I mean, talk about this with us.
Look at that peak.
That was a massive peak. That was 21.5% in 1984.
21.5%. Just to put perspective on that, if you had a $100,000 mortgage, that's $21,000 you were spending each and every year to service that debt, plus your principal.
Forget about the compounding.
Yeah, and forget about your other costs of home ownership then. So even though you only had a $100,000 home, that $21,000 by 12 is roughly $2,000 a month you were paying for a home.
Now, we did a little bit of homework.
Yes.
So that we're not caught off guard with someone who doesn't think we did our homework. All right? So we did a little bit of homework. Average household income back in 1980s was $41,000 a year.
It was roughly $41,000, yes.
$41,000 a year to service $2,000 a month in mortgage payments.
Yes. In Barrie today, roughly household income is
$88,000.
roughly double, a little more than double that.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, house prices have more than doubled, but at the same time, that $2,000 a month to carry that $100,000 home in 1984, 85, today is more likely a $500,000 home, but if you bought it within the last 5 years, you're paying anywhere from 2.5% to say 4% interest on that. So that's, 4,000 times 5. That's roughly the same amount of
You're right.
interest payment you're paying out.
So it's important, though, to put things into perspective, right? How far did your buying power go?
Yes.
What were the interest rates? Is it insurmountable to be at 21%? What was the average household income? All of those things need to be taken into consideration. The fact of the matter is that somehow people made it through. What do we know was different? We know that we didn't have some of our extra costs that we see today. We didn't pay for cell phones. We didn't have internet.
How many services are you paying $25, $30, $40 a month for? Besides your cable, home security,
I know
that service.
I know a certain internet cell phone provider that's getting $700 a month out of me.
Yeah.
Right now, which is just ridiculous. But factor it all in. I mean, the fact of the matter is that if it really means something to me, can I either A, find a way to make more money, or B, can I find a way to cut down on some of my costs? And that's a conversation that people need to have at home amongst themselves. Is there a way, can I stop or slow down on how many times a week or a month I eat out? Can I trim down on some of my nice to haves instead of my want to haves? The question is it important enough for me to make a change?
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell our audience what to do. That's not
and
my job.
Restructuring your existing debt too can make a world of difference. And a lot of people walk through life without bothering to do that, not realizing the insane amount of money they're spending they don't need to on the interest on their
Well, there's a reason they call it death by a thousand cuts or nickel and dime to death. Those are all terms that are coined for a reason. The fact of the matter is that when we have clients into our office and some of our clients are very hesitant or reluctant to change. And so we're very careful to not, listen, I'm not here to judge, but I'm going to give you an exercise to take home. If you want to do it, you'll do it. If you don't want to do it, you won't do it. That's entirely up to you. And it's amazing how many of our clients come back a week later and they're blown away and very thankful for having had the opportunity to do the exercise because they didn't realize how much money they were spending at $1.85 or $2 at a time on a coffee or a tea or a donut or whatever it might be.
In the moment, we're not looking at it. And if you can get your spending habits into a healthy place, get your debt into a healthy place. It's amazing how much better a position or and how much sooner you'll be able to enter into that. So that's the first step.
Mike,
get yourself healthy.
I have a client, and when you talk about get yourself healthy, it's get yourself healthy from an actual emotional standpoint, from a physical standpoint.
Well, that'll help
from
with
a
your emotional.
financial
It feels good
standpoint.
once you've got all that debt structured properly and your services.
I have a client who makes a lot of cash and does a lot of jobs for cash or whatever, and had no bookkeeping.
With no regard for
No
it,
bookkeeping whatsoever. This client advised me that they smoked a pack and a half cigarettes a day.
Mm-hmm.
We've calculated it was actually between the client and the client's spouse smoking as well. Collectively, they were spending over $13,000 a year just on cigarettes.
13,000.
$13,000.
I was going to guess 2,000 or 3,000
dollars a year on cigarettes. I was blown away.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely blown away. So the point is, though, that you think just making a slight shift in your habit was actually not going to do much.
Yeah.
You compound
One or two
it.
things.
When
maybe.
you compound it, it has a significant impact.
Mm-hmm.
Let's leave that alone for now.
Okay. You're
The-
healthy. What's the next step?
Well, the other thing that you can look at is, do you have to enter into the home ownership market, leaving your own rental aside and moving in for your white picket fence home? We talked last week about most Canadians still look forward to owning a detached home.
Mm-hmm.
But do we have to go from rental to detached home?
No.
Or can we go in
There's a step
can we
in
go in
between
increments?
that more and more people are accepting they need to do, and that is that they need to have a shared accommodation. If they can buy a home that has an existing or the potential to build a second suite, that is probably one of the best ways to make your home more affordable for you during that period where you pay down some of that, build some equity, and then you step into that home of your dreams.
Absolutely. So just before we go to the break, I think it's important for people to realize, I mean, I've had clients and I've had a business coach of mine who did this himself. Plain and simple, he still lived in his basement apartment while he was buying his first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and 10th homes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until he had about 10 in his portfolio, and this was somebody who was seriously committed. This was someone who was determined, committed, that this is what he wanted to do. But he stayed living in his very affordable, fixed overhead, manageable basement apartment, and managed to just put together a portfolio of his own.
Yes.
Bought duplexes.
Well, that's the thing. Now you've got a portfolio of 2 or 3 or 4 detached homes. Now you've built some equity. You've got the ability, if you liquidate and you transfer that money into a part, and I've done that.
Let me give you the punchline.
People have purchased or even built multiplex units.
The
and
punchline
they're
was
set
simply
for the
this,
rest of their
Mike.
lives with them.
The punchline was simply this. If you and I go and buy a home for ourselves, we have to carry the price of that.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. You and I have to carry the price of that home ourselves. We have to cash flow that home ourselves. We have to carry the burden of that home ownership all on our own. In this particular case, if you buy sufficient number of investment properties where they're cash flowing, they're covering the taxes, they're covering the insurance, they're covering a little bit for maintenance, they're covering the mortgage itself,
Yeah.
and you have a little bit of positive cash flow at the end, and you build yourself a portfolio, and the house appreciates and the equity builds,
Yeah.
you actually can then allow your portfolio to pay you to buy your own home.
Yeah. It's the safest way to wealth
Absolutely.
over any other investment
So
strategy.
when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about how we can change your mindset from what the current market was maybe just a couple months ago to what the new market is looking towards.
and where those opportunities are now in this market.
Yeah, we'll talk to you shortly.
Hi, and welcome back to Hitting Home. I'm Mike. I'm here with Arif, and we've talked about, up till now, just how the market is shifting and where that may or may not create opportunity for those who want to invest in real
Well,
estate.
the fact of the matter is, it does create opportunity
sure.
for those
I
who
think
are
we've
nervous
established
about, am I priced out of the market? The answer is no. Are you willing to switch your way of thinking?
But what has really changed, and the TV shows that you watch, there's a whole network that attests to this, that's built on
This whole industry.
the philosophy of
Yeah.
buy and flip, buy and flip. And that's been fine for the last 10, 15, even 20 years, where we've seen home prices jump, where we've seen the opportunity to get into some of those rough around the edges fixer-uppers.
Right
turn 'em around,
now?
flip 'em. They're still doing the shows.
Yeah.
It's a bit of fantasy TV more than reality TV, certainly in our market. the strategy now needs to be more of a long-term buy and hold. And let's talk a little bit about how that would work for most people.
I mean, put it this way, I'm not going to cancel the whole industry.
No.
I just think that it's going to be slightly off its peak.
Yes.
And I think that for the person who bought at the right time, or the person who's very handy, yeah, and here's the thing, you can still buy on a discount. You can still buy, whether it's an estate property or a former rental that was left in a bad state of repair, and you're able to pick it up at a discount, and you can do the renovation. You might not flip.
No.
You might not flip as quickly, but what you certainly can do is turn it into a rental property.
Yes.
It'll cash flow for you.
And that's what you want.
Right.
And buy and hold long term.
Yeah.
Let the
I'm not saying the
equity
industry's
build.
dead. I'm saying the opportunities
Because
are there, but-
prices, you know, I mean, it's always, everybody has always said, and I've said this on the show before, is I should have bought 20 years ago. That's the line. But at any point in time, you can say that about the last 20 years.
Let me give you a scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were looking, when we were first looking at purchasing in Barrie, this was almost 20 years ago. I don't think it was quite 20
early
years.
2000s.
Early 2000s, there was the most gorgeous development, a condo that we ever saw
On
in
the
Barrie.
lake, or
Actually, right where Blake and Collier meet and
Roxborough.
Dunlop meet, the Roxborough.
yes, very nice.
I think you
properties.
referred to it once before as a Casa Loma looking style.
It does
building.
have that style with the brick and the
Oh,
stone
stonework and stucco and
finishings,
yeah,
high ceilings.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
And honestly, when we were looking at it, we said, it's in the mid to high 300s.
Oh,
There
that
is
was
no
ridiculous.
way I
Who's
will
gonna pay that
ever
for a
pay
townhome?
exactly, or
I
for a
remember
condo.
the mindset. Yeah.
There's no, and add to that some condo fees. Never going to happen. It'll never sell.
No.
They're going for $800 to $1 million today,
Yes, I know.
and I could have had one.
That's I'm a little
for
bit
the
of
mid
foresight.
threes.
Oh, I know. I moved up here in 2000, like late 90s. I was fixing and flipping little duplexes in East York.
Yeah.
Buying them for 125, doing a little work on them, selling them for 150, maybe netting myself about $10,000 to $15,000 per unit, and which translated to about $6 an hour, I think, probably with all the effort put in. But those same places, late 90s, are now selling in the $700,000-$800,000 range.
Yeah.
So
Well, the fact of the
fix and
matter
flip
is,
for that 15,000, or hold, let the home carry itself for the long term. If I was patient, my retirement would have been built into some of those properties.
so what are we looking at? Where's the good opportunity for someone to look at buying today? I mean, because again, our prices are high in Barrie, but you can go Barrie and surrounding area.
Yeah.
Now you got to watch for, if you're on well and septic, you're going to get a little bit less of a loan to the value of the
Yeah.
home. There might be some restrictions in terms of buying, but if you're an investor, do you have to live in Barrie and invest in Barrie and buy in Barrie,
No.
or where's the next marketplace? Because really, the people who built their empires are the ones who looked out 10 years, 20 years, bought cheap, waited for the market to catch up, and then they were the landlords of the area.
You don't have
right?
to buy and live and invest all in the same bubble. You can.
So what are you
and a
recommending
lot
to
of-
your clients who are looking for an investment property?
There's
What
opportunity
about Midland?
in small towns going north of Barrie. There's
Absolutely.
opportunity right here in Barrie still. If you look at some of the neighborhoods, like along Innisfil Street, Sanford, some of the older little
So areas that
bungalow
are ripe
duplex
for
neighbor-
reinvestment or ripe for redevelopment.
reinvestment, for redevelopment, renovation, and a lot of those will be redeveloped over time with the demand for multi-unit. So some of those older...
Those are larger, deeper properties as well.
Yeah, they're big lots. So there's really good opportunity in some of those older pre-1970 neighborhoods is what I would call them in Barrie. But some of those same neighborhoods, when you get up into Orillia, Midland, Penetang, Port McNichol, there's even greater opportunity. Not
Are they still
opportunity
commanding
overnight.
they're still commanding the rents, but the actual price for the purchase of the subject
the
itself?
price to get in the door is less. The rents are comparative to Barrie. Barrie rents are fairly high, but they don't drop considerably much. I mean, if you can buy a house for 70% less in Penetang than you can here, it doesn't mean the rents there are 70% less. You're actually at a better advantage. You're going to get a higher return ratio on your rents in some of these smaller towns.
So you
than
might
you'll
be
get in Barrie.
adding to your portfolio
Yes.
a little bit of time and travel,
Mm-hmm.
but you're actually coming in at a discount.
Yes,
or
but
at a
again,
relative
the
discount.
people in those communities are still faced with the challenges of quickly rising housing prices, and a lot of them needing to rent. So the
So-
demand for rentals is just as high in some of these smaller communities as it is in Barrie.
So here's the
prices
fact.
that are
I've got a
good.
map in front of me, and I've got to take a dart, and I've got to throw it at the map, and I've got to choose that right spot.
Yeah.
So you really do need a real estate professional who knows what's going on in the industry, in general.
Mhm.
Is there manufacturing? Are there jobs? What is the actual trend? Are businesses coming to that town
Well,
and
these
investing
are all
in that
things
town?
you need to look at to consider as if you want to be a savvy investor who's done their homework. Is look at some changes economically that may come positive or negative to a region. Now,
So-
obviously, you're looking for the positive ones, or maybe you want to come in on the back end of a negative change that's happened in a region and realize there's going to be a recovery here, and that's my opportunity to get in and ride that recovery.
So I think we've got a show. I think
Mm-hmm.
on that very last point, we've got a show. And whether it's next week's show or not, I think you and I are going to go do some homework. We're going to study the area. We're going to
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
look at the maps, and we're going to see what's
look at some
happening.
of the regions
We're going to see
and-
what's happening in the region in terms of trends for economic growth, et cetera, because the key is
Back it
if
with
we
the
can
numbers.
help our audience to go and find an area that has future potential in the next near to midterm,
Yeah.
that's the time to buy.
Yeah, I could rattle them off, but I'd love to back it with the
Okay,
numbers.
so
let's
we
do that.
are 1 minute away, and let's do that all important wrap up of
Wrap
letting
up.
our audience know where they can find us and get a
Well,
hold of us.
we're all over the place.
We're
now.
syndicated internationally.
Yes. Well, it's keeping track. Well, we do have our podcast, which is the mirror of this that we started as we went into the summer recess from the show, and we're continuing the podcast.
Where can people find
it's
us,
an
Mike?
audio podcast. Go to Google search Hitting Home with Mike and Arif, and you're going to find links to Spotify, LinkedIn, iTunes, Google Podcasts. All of them are
TuneIn
carrying
Radio.
TuneIn Radio. They're all carrying our podcast, but that's the key. Is just
You
Google
can-
search Hitting Home the
There's
podcast.
our
with
email
Mike
address
and
is on the screen for you now as
Arif.
well.
We've got our email.
And you can find us on Facebook at Hitting Home with Mike and Arif,
Facebook with Mike and Arif is our Facebook. Hitting Home with Mike and Arif.
or
is-
hittinghome.ca.
And hittinghome.ca is our website. But all
And
of
we
the
are out of
archives
time.
are there, and you can find us anywhere.
Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next week.
Thank you.